Welcome to Farm Science Review. Thanks for joining us again, everybody. We're out here in the agronomic crop plots looking at the cover crops. If you've been following us throughout the past year, we planted some different cover crops out here. The section we're going to start out in is the interseed cover crops, where we planted into corn at about V4. We planted a lot of different species out here, but very few of them, one grew, and even less of them then overwintered. So when you look behind me and across this plot, the ones that did really well was annual ryegrass and red clover. They grew very well. We could see them early on, and they've shown up really nice now and providing excellent cover. That red clover has some potential to produce a little bit of nitrogen if you're going to be planting corn after corn and you're utilizing cover crops. We're probably going to want to think about killing that annual ryegrass though here pretty soon. One challenge many producers have with annual ryegrass is getting it killed in the spring. You got to have some really warm weather, and it's got to be vigorously growing in order to kill it. The other crops we had some success with is the cereal rye. You can see that it's in some clumps. It didn't really come up in a solid stand, but it did grow in spots. The rapeseed also grew, did fairly well. Again, it's in clumps a little bit, but it would have made an okay cover crop. If you were following us before, we had some radishes out here that grew. They've been winter killed. A few other things, we had some other clover species and some other turnips and things that didn't grow well at all. So really, overall, the four best cover crops we found in this section of interseed was the red clover, annual ryegrass, cereal rye, and rapeseed did okay, but not the greatest.
So last time we were out here, I talked a little bit about the weather, how we had some freeze, but not a whole lot there in mid-January. Well, right after that, in February, as a lot of you across Ohio and the Midwest experienced, we had some cold temperatures. We had a 15-day stretch where it didn't get above freezing at all, and we had a good 3 weeks, maybe even 4, of solid snow cover. So that really did a lot to go through these cover crops and finish off what was kind of hanging on. And one of those was the radishes. If you go back to our video just before this, those radishes, they were starting to die. You could kind of wring them. They were wet and sloppy, but they were soft. Well, here today, this one you can see there's not much left of it. There's hardly any weight. It's really dried out and decomposed. They've left holes in the ground. Well, and that's one thing that we talked about with radishes, being able to get down and break up some of that compaction. You can also see here the rapeseed that survived, the sun hemp sticks, and we mentioned some of that last time as well. But what I want to point out here is some of the weed control that we got compared with the plots where we don't have any cover crops. There's not nearly the winter annuals present in here, and we've seen a little bit of research indicating that they do offer some weed control. While it's not complete, it will help, especially with those winter annuals. Now, moving forward with this project, we have some plans to do some things this spring and into the summer for you to come out and see at Farm Science Review. We're going to do some planting green into some of these cover crops. We're also going to get a roller crimper out here and see how that does as far as terminating the cover crop and then planting into that type of situation. So come out here in September and check that out.
All right, we moved around a little bit over here. We're out here in a multi-species area where we have strips of different species growing, some that overwintered and some that didn't. We have some turnips here, 2 different kinds. This one here is a forage turnip, and the other one's an apron turnip. And they actually overwintered really well. Now, they were planted late July, so it had been similar to the time frame where you would have planted after wheat. So if you planted those species and they overwinter, which isn't every year, but this winter they did with that good snow cover, you're gonna have those bulbs to contend with, but if they're at a low seeding rate, that might not be a problem. Some of the other species we have out here, cereal rye, of course, that was a little bit early for establishment of cereal rye, but it overwintered very well, followed by crimson clover, also overwintered very nicely. And then we get into annual ryegrass. It overwintered very well. Did some root dig there in the annual ryegrass. It has a really nice fine root system. Actually, when I was digging in the annual ryegrass, we found an earthworm right there in that spot without even trying. First hole we dug. So you know they're building that soil biological activity. Red clover, another one, overwintered well, has a nice root system. We have some hairy vetch planted. Again, it overwintered. It's got a really thick mat to that hairy vetch, so it's really providing a lot of ground cover there. That mat you're going to have to plant through. At a lower seeding rate, it might not be quite so bad, but it's got a really nice fibrous root system going on. And then we have some more of the radishes, which did not overwinter. Those are all dead, going to be really easy to plant through. Beside those, we have rapeseed. Did a little bit of root dig there in the rapeseed and got a nice root system on it. It's not that fine roots like the hairy vetch or annual ryegrass had. It's more of a thick root system going down, helping to loosen up your soil. After that, we have some Balanza clover that overwintered. And then as we kind of move on across, we had some sorghum, which winter killed. It's breaking down very nicely. It's going to be on a nice dry day, very easy to plant through, just breaks up really nice. And then beside that's a patch of oats. That oats has also died off. It's kind of matted down against the ground, going to help protect the soil from the sun, rain splash, and going to help hold some of that soil moisture and keep your soils maybe a little bit cooler throughout the summer. And should be fairly easy to plant through on a dry day. Thanks for joining us out here at Farm Science Review this year and watching these cover crops, and stay tuned as we get started on our 2021 planting season. Got a lot of excellent demonstrations planned for you and plan to see you out here in September.